All right, everybody, welcome back once more to the ROS Media channel. I'm back here again with my good friend Ian Clifford. Following our recent webinar of last Saturday, that was the 14th, the secret to the Monopoly board, how to lawfully recoup your credit energy. We've had quite a lot of questions that have come through from members, from new people that are just joining our webinars for the first time, covering everything from recoupment to trusts to timelines to maybe some more technical understanding of how this works, and also, you know, what's happening behind the scenes with all of this as well. So what we're going to do today, as we've been doing with each of our webinars, is we get all the questions together that are unanswered, and then we go through them clearly, methodically, answer them one at a time. So let's get into it. Ian, great to have you with us. Obviously, the first thing that we tend to do on these interviews is the problem itself. You know, let's examine the problem as to why did we do the webinar on Saturday. So if you could give us some context of what the problem is when it comes to recouping credit energy, and basically why people don't particularly understand how that works or know that they can even do it in the first place, and then we can dig into the questions.
Well, the problem is deliberate misinformation. You know, all of us, including me, have downloaded information over our however many years we've been playing Monopoly on the Monopoly board, and we've all downloaded information from our parents, from maybe our school teacher, maybe our boss, our friends, the books, the courses. Everything that we've been downloading has led us to believe that, well, it's an interesting thing actually, because I think if you ask 100 people randomly, please describe to me where the money comes from, you'd probably get a whole range of different answers. And nobody would be able to say, well, I know exactly how that works. It's ex nihilo credit creation. It comes from your signature. There is no money of substance. There is only promises to pay in the future and ledgers. And it's basically all a tax system. I don't think anybody, unless you ask me, would give you that answer. They would give you a whole range of other answers. It's the central banks. That's where the money comes from. It's the government. That's where the money comes from. It's the rich families. That's where the money comes from. And then you ask them, well, what is money? And they probably say, well, it's what, you know, what you use to pay for things with. You know, you have something in your account. You use that in your account to pay for things. I mean, it's a stupid question, isn't it? You know, surely everybody knows what money is. And I think you get a whole range of answers.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought before we came into contact with one another. You know, I was that guy. I just thought that money was a physical thing, notes, coins. Obviously, I grasped the idea of digital money moving around and cryptocurrency, but I thought, in my naivety, that it had a value attached to it, and that was the exchange of value, me buying something of value in exchange for an equal return of value with the money that I moved. That's what I always thought.
Yeah, and of course, you know, a lot of people who've looked into it are then misled because there's lots of misinformation. They'll say, well, surely the money's backed by gold, isn't it? Because a lot of people still believe that money is backed by gold.
Yeah.
And then you've got other people that will say, no. The money's not backed by gold, but the banks can do this thing called, they can multiply the money supply up through different, you know, mechanisms, and they won't really be able to describe it very well, but they will. They'll come up with different theories that they've got, and in fact, Professor Richard Werner wrote his paper about 10, 12 years ago called The Three Theories of Money, where a lot of people believe that there is a multiplier. So you give a bank £1 and they can multiply it by 10. And therefore there's now £10 in circulation. And, you know, this is a belief, it's called fractional reserve banking. And a huge number of people believe in that. Oh, yeah, you put £1 in a bank and they can use that pound to multiply up to 10, 20, £100. That's where the money comes from. It's all fractional reserve. There's a massive number of people that believe in that.
Yeah.
All of these things. Money's not backed by gold. There is no such thing as fractional reserve lending. There is no money multiplier. There is only the transference of energy. Money is backed by energy, and that's it, plain and simple. And on the Monopoly Board of Commerce, everything on that Monopoly board is artificial. It's all ledgers. It's basically, they are taxing our energy. The nominees on the Monopoly board are using our energy. We don't know that we're putting energy on the Monopoly board, and we certainly don't know how to recoup it, because there is no course, there is no book apart from my books. There's nothing out there which you can absorb. And even if you wanted to absorb it, how many people would want to look into monetary policy? How many people would want to study how the money system really works? I don't think there's that many people that would sit there and think, well, I tell you what, why not let's get all the books out and have a look and see how the money system works. I just don't think that there are very many people out there like that.
No, I think to be fair, most people are probably of the mind that that's just beyond me. You know, academically, it's beyond me. I'm not a finance guy. I'm not into that realm. You know, I'm just a normal, whether it be a blue collar worker or whatever it is that people do. And I'm certainly not, discrediting people who have manual jobs or blue collar workers. I used to be one. I was a forklift driver. You know, when my wife and I met each other, I worked in a factory on minimum wage, driving a forklift, loading lorries all day long. That's what I used to do. And they're not really the kind of conversations that you have with your workmates. They're certainly not the kind of thoughts that come up into your head. Oh, let me go and look into the source of money and where it actually historically came from and what it means. You're too busy. You're too busy just providing for your family. So there's a lot of distractions and a lot of things that get in the way of people finding the truth, isn't there?
I think that it's deliberate. You know, the things that really matter, hardly anybody looks into. Literally, I mean, things in health, hardly anybody looks into them. The monetary system and how it really works, hardly anybody looks into it. The nature of reality, hardly anybody looks into it. Consciousness, hardly anybody looks into it. Whether there's any time, that hardly anybody looks into it.
Yeah.
But we all look into things which are in our face. I think this is the reality. You know, we're distracted by all these different things that are going on in our world that we've got to deal with, because if we don't deal with them, we may have a big problem. So that is why I think a lot of people don't look into things. I think they're programmed to believe that it's beyond their capability. It's somebody else's problem. Let the experts look after it. I've got to deal with how I'm going to buy my groceries this week, or how am I going to pay my gas bill or my mortgage? My kid's ill. I need to look after my kid. I think all these things that are going on in people's worlds are distracting them from asking those big questions. And it's quite interesting to me, because I did a lot of academic study back in the 90s. I came off the back of having no qualifications when I left school. And then in the next decade, I did loads of study and got myself qualified by the Chartered Insurance Institute. I did 6 or 7 years worth of study. But it's interesting to me that there's no course that actually you could learn about ex nihilo credit creation. There is no course.
No.
It's not like it's there and nobody wants to take it. It's just not available.
No.
So if you become a financial professional, for which I was one for many years, there is no course that you go to that teaches you how the credit is actually created, how the currency, the money is created. And this is why Richard Werner spent 16 years studying how the money was created, because there wasn't any course. I mean, he literally spent 16 years, wrote all sorts of books and forensic research papers, and actually went into a bank and looked at behind the scenes how they created the currencies, all in his research papers. Now, if you gave people Richard Werner's research papers, the 3 theories of money, or can banks really create credit out of nothing or money out of nothing? How many people are going to read them?
Yeah, not many.
Very few. Very few people are going to read them. If you and what's extraordinary to me is if I was to stand up in front of an audience at somewhere and say, how many people here would like to recoup their abandoned signature credit, which could mean that the difference between their pathway forward being one of stress, anxiety, and struggle, or complete financial abundance? How many people would put their hand up and say, do you know what, Ian? I'd love to know more about that. I think what you would get is a lot of people looking at you very confused. It's like, what's this guy talking about? I've never heard anybody with that question before. Maybe he's a nutter.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's, like you said, there's so many barriers to this for people. It's almost crisis management on a domestic level in families, just dealing with the next fire, putting that out, like you said, gas bill, food, whatever it may be, work. And then you've also got the preconditioning from being a child, and that huge amount of years and years and years worth of preconditioning. I'm not going to lie, when I first listened to some of your webinars and some of your work, I was like, nah, that can't be true. It took me a while to break down those beliefs, but the more I looked into it, the more it made sense. But you do have to spend time on this. You can't glance over it. You have to spend some time on it.
I think the problem is that the programming that we've all downloaded, you can't just remove it straight away. No. It's a gradual process. I'm no psychologist, but I think if you were to talk to psychologists about what people believe in, you can't remove people's beliefs in an instant. It takes a while. Lots of people believe in all manner of things, and you can't sit them down and say, hey, why do you believe that? Because they probably can't tell you. They probably couldn't pinpoint what makes them believe what they believe. It's just a combination of information that they've absorbed over many, many years. And you come along and challenge people's beliefs, and the first reaction you're going to get is the hand. It's like, don't talk to me about that, because I like my beliefs. I'm comfortable with what I believe in, and you're coming along and you're challenging my beliefs, and I don't want to be challenged because it might make me feel uncomfortable. I might get out of my comfort zone. If you're right and what I believe is wrong, then what else is it that I'm wrong about in my beliefs? So it's nice and comfortable to stay in this belief paradigm, even though there's no actual facts to back it up. Now, me having a very logical brain, that to me is extraordinary, that people believe things without actually looking into the facts that underlie them. But, the majority don't have, from my experience, a brain that is going to challenge the information. They're just going to accept it. The majority just accept what they're downloading from all different sources without challenging it. And I think that the way we're going as a society, with all this technology available to us and instant information available to us, if you want to take humanity down a pathway to believe things, all you've got to do now is put the media together, and the media is going to tell you a story. And then you put the computers together in the internet and you download things from there, and that's going to tell you a story. And then you get the so-called experts that are going to stand up and say, well, this is how it works. And that's another way of getting people to believe things. But I would say, and I'm happy to debate it with anybody, that all of those 3 things I've just mentioned are not based on fact. They're based on a story. And people like believing stories. I think it's why when we were kids, if we were lucky enough, our mum and dad read us stories. Yeah. Because your imagination, and you could go all down different pathways and have different adventures in your mind based upon stories which weren't actually based on any facts whatsoever, but we probably believed them. How many kids believe in Father Christmas?
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
I mean, maybe adults still believe in it. I don't know. But, you know, it's like when you're a kid, you believe in Father Christmas. Well, when you're an adult, when you've come of age and you're still believing that there's something backing money, when you believe that the people on the TV that read the news out can be trusted, when you're looking at the so-called experts and you're trusting them to get it right, if you are believing in all of those things, it's just to me like believing in Father Christmas.
And that's a problem. That's a big problem. So when it comes to, because we spoke before we kind of came on, didn't we? And we were talking about this. You've kind of got people who are in that sandbox, who are believing what they hear from the experts, from the authorities. Oh, I saw it on Google, so it must be true. You know, whatever it is. But then there's also another group of people within the freedom space that are way over here somewhere in terms of their beliefs as well. And I want to touch on that because a lot of the questions that we've had come through, to me, that the narrative of the questions and the way that they've been formed speak to the freedom community as a whole. So I do want to address that because there's some fundamental problems there as well, even though we are all for freedom. Let's just touch on that for a minute.
Well, I had an interview with Mel Clark just a couple of days ago, and you know, of course, there are YouTube channels, there are media channels that attract, you know, and there is a huge number, many millions around the world, that believe, you know, that the so-called authorities. I don't believe that there is any authority actually, but they call themselves the authorities, will label this group as free man on the land or sovereign citizen. Which of course is an oxymoron. You can't be a sovereign and a citizen at the same time. But that's the labels that they give the movement of people. You can say there are subsets of that movement: the people that believe in common law, the people that believe in the royal law, so the blue law. This is God's law. The people that believe in the Constitution, the people that believe in the UCC, the people that believe in the redemption movement, the people that believe in that they are nationals, not citizens, the people that believe in all derivatives of those things. And there's a huge number out there in around the world. And I've actually done some research as to where this all began. Because again, I like to know and understand things. You know, where did the free man on the land movement come from? It's a sovereign movement that they call sovereign citizen. Where does it come from? And how does it spread? Well, the origins of it are the United States, about 30 years ago, where people started believing that they were nationals of the United States. And then that sort of morphed into other things. And then you had people, when the internet first became really popular, then people started getting on the internet and they were selling courses and they were running videos and they were doing things which 30 years ago were quite new. And, you know, you didn't, prior to the internet, the free man on the land movement didn't exist.
No.
You know, because where were you going to learn it from? You know, you're not going to go down the library and read about free man on the land.
No,
you're not.
It was more environmentalists back then, wasn't it? You know, you had your Greenpeace, and you had your people kind of chaining themselves to trees and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I can remember that back in the sort of 80s.
Yeah, you had the hippies, you had the people that were anti-establishment, you had the people, the anti-war people, the Vietnam, anti-war people, you had the environment people, but you didn't have the free man on the land a network, if you like, because that really only came about when the internet became popular, and then people were looking on the internet, and then of course you could download information that people have put up there that believe things without actually justifying anything about whether they were true or not. So, you know, you could believe in the man on the moon if you wanted to, or you could believe in Martians, you know, coming with green spaceships, you know, flying towards you. You can believe anything you want today, because there's so much information on the internet that looks quite credible. And then, of course, you've got what appears to be, very common within societies, is that people like to move in herds. I think it's inherent in human nature. So you get a herd of people that believe something, whatever it might be, and then it's safe to join that herd. If you join that herd, then, you know, and if you believe that money's backed by gold, that's a belief. If you believe that the central banks create the money supply, that's a belief. If you believe that the government supplies the money, it's a herd, right? If you believe in the academic belief, you know, that's where people like Dan Needle are. You know, he didn't study where ex nihilo credit as a course in university, so it can't exist. So there are all these different herds of people who are basically safety in numbers. They believe what they believe, and there's lots of others that believe the same thing. So they're very safe. They're very secure in their beliefs. And I think this is what's going on.
It's part of your brain, I think, as well, isn't it? It's hardwired into people's brains as well. I think isn't it the mammalian part of the brain? I think they call it, don't they?
I think it
which is to do with tribe and to do with safety as well. So if there's authority and there's a tribe, then that equals safety, and that is what people are doing. They ran a test on that. Interestingly, exactly what you're talking about here. They got a group of people, and I think there were 10 people. They gave them all a piece of paper with 3 different lines on the piece of paper, 3 different lengths of lines. And then they studied that all together. And then what they did was they then gave each of those individuals another piece of paper with another line on that piece of paper. And they were asked which of these 3 lines does this line match up to? And it was blatantly obvious which one it was. There wasn't any room for maneuver with this. The first 9 were in on the act, and they all picked a line that clearly it wasn't, but they all picked the same one. And the 10th person was the subject. And rather than go for what was blatantly obvious, he followed the crowd. He followed the authority. He followed the tribe because he felt safe doing that. So I totally get it. Yeah.
And that's what we're up against. And you know, all the way through my life, I've always challenged what people have told me. It's like, how do you know that's true? Just because you heard it somewhere else, how do you know? And you know, that's where I think you know, my brain is different, I think, from a lot of. We've all got a different brain type, but I want the proof. You know, I don't want to just believe it because it's comfortable to believe something. I want to look into it, because I actually believe that in terms of information that's out there, I think the majority of the information out there is just complete bullshit. I really do. You know, I think the truth is in the minority, and the bullshit is the majority of what people actually believe. I think people fill up all sorts of papers that they write, or books that they read, magazines they read, videos they watch, interviewers that they listen to, and people going on different channels talking about their subject. And I look at it and think, it sounds like a load of bullshit to me. You know, just because it sounds convincing or it looks convincing, is it true? So then you go and look into it, and then you find out it's complete and utter nonsense. But a load of people will believe it because somebody very convincing is saying it. And the best example of that, you know, in recent years is the so-called pandemic. You know, these alleged experts standing on and in front of you on the TV, telling you there's a pandemic, and if you didn't listen to them, you might die, and you had to have the death jab, because if you didn't have that, you might infect everybody around you. And the overwhelming majority believed that story. Yet when you unpack it and look at the evidence, there was no evidence. There was nothing other than a load of propaganda that was worldwide, and it wasn't even just in one country. That in itself tells you everything you need to know. If the entire world starts believing something, it's got to be bullshit, because it's no way that it could be true and it being unfolding in front of people in every single country of the world all at the same time.
Yeah,
it's just could never happen.
Yeah.
But people believed it, and now you've got all the evidence is now coming out. In fact, the evidence was there in 2019. I never believed it from the moment people started talking about it, because to me it made absolutely no sense. I wasn't going to believe in it. If people are really falling over dead in the street, why aren't I seeing them fall over dead in the street? When you had these pictures out of China, it's like, really? Is anybody really believing this stuff? But sadly, the majority of people did believe it. And I thought it was absolutely extraordinary. But why did they believe it? Because our authority figures were explaining it and pushing the narrative that others around them believed it, so they were safety in numbers, and they were afraid, because in case it was true, the fear. So they had to believe it because they were afraid. And that, I think, if you put all those components together, that's why people believe a lot of this nonsense. And when it comes to money, I think people are inherently afraid of being in debt. They're afraid of taxes. They're afraid of being fined. They're basically afraid of money. The old saying that the root of all evil is money. Well, it's not actually money itself. It's the way you get it that's the root of all evil. The way that some people get it. So I think there's this fear and belief. I remember, I don't want to go down too many tangents, but my first wife, her mother used to convince my first wife when she was growing up that anybody who had money was evil. If you had some money and you could afford to buy things, you've got to be evil, because only the righteous didn't have any money.
That's the narrative that's pushed, though. It's pushed on children. You look at look at a Disney cartoon. You could go back through a multitude of Disney style cartoons, and the rich guy typically was that guy. And you can picture the scene, a bit of a misty street with the street lamps on, and then the big black limousine pulls up, and the window comes down just a little bit, and there's a big fat cigar smoke coming out of the window. That was the rich guy in the back of the car. He was always the bad guy, So
So the linkage between those that are affluent and have an abundance, and they must be the evil ones.
And this is what we're up against, when it comes to the webinars that we do. And maybe this is why we've had some of the questions that we've had today. So I'm glad that we kind of brought that up, and we'll go through these questions, guys. We're not kind of skipping over questions and only answering the ones that we want to answer. I've got all the questions here, and we're going to go through these, because some of these do come from that free man on the land sector. And there are clearly some of you that have been watching the content here that still think or believe in a certain way when it comes to money, when it comes to trusts, when it comes to, call it what you want, Nasara Jasara, the Sesta KV. People seem to think that there's this big pot there that belongs to them that's got millions of dollars in it. And and now you're going to show me, Ian's going to show me how to access all of that money.
I'm going to give you the key. I think they call it cognitive dissonance. That is what it's described as by the psychologists. It's a belief that is comfortable, and if you challenge it, people become very uncomfortable and they want to return to their comfort zone. So anything that's new that is a paradigm shift away from what they already believe is going to cause fear. So when they feel fearful, they go away from fear and they go towards comfort. So what I've been talking about and what we're going to talk about today and what I talked about on all the webinars I've been doing is taking people into a state of fear. Even though I'm trying to free them from their fear, it's a paradox. I'm trying to give them information that frees them from fear, but they don't want to necessarily believe it all because they are afraid of it.
I think people fear change, don't they? And it does require a fundamental shift, a change in mindset, a change in belief, sometimes even a change in how you do things and how you operate as well. And that's what people don't want. That's what people back away from in many cases, I think.
Yeah, I think, what I'm saying is, look, you can recoup your signature credit and change your lifestyle forever. You don't have to go to work. You don't have to run a business unless you want to. You can spend and recoup. And it's like, well, from the earliest age you can remember, everybody told you that if you were going to be regarded as somebody who's got some worth in this society, is you had to work hard. Because you had to go do something, create something, sell something, build something in order to have some kind of standing in society. And then Ian's coming along saying, well, actually, all that credit you've already put on the Monopoly board, you can recoup it, spend it and recoup it, and then you can go off and do something else. And I actually say, well, why not use your genius talent, which can actually expand the influence of your genius talent across a much wider number of people? Because we've all got a genius talent. Why don't you go and tap into that? You don't have to go and stack shelves anymore or work in an office or run a business and be stressed out 7 days a week. No, you can recoup your abandoned credit, your signature credit, and you can go and do something which you actually enjoy doing, that your brain is very capable of doing. You're very capable of doing it because everybody's got a genius. And I strongly believe that. I've never met anybody who's not a genius. It's just that they don't know it. And their genius is being suppressed. So what I'm saying is move away from slavery and move into abundance and move into your genius. And yet people are afraid of it because nobody else has given them that option before. And what I'm saying is it's not just a theory. You're not reading a book. And I remember, Andy, when The Secret, the movie The Secret, or the documentary The Secret came out, right? Loads and loads of people jumped on that and started using that as like, if I just believe in this, then, in the next few days or weeks or months, my whole economic future is going to change. And I don't have to do all this stuff anymore that I've been doing. And loads and loads of people jumped onto that. It was hugely popular for a while. How many people's lives actually changed because of it? I think the only change that I could see is that people spent money buying the course or watching the DVD. I don't think that many people's lives changed at all. But what I'm saying is that here is tangible evidence that will enable you to change your life forever going forward, based upon facts, not based on theory, based on facts, and based on evidence of it working. And yet still people are confused about it, afraid of it, asking questions which clearly demonstrate they don't understand the foundations of it at all, which is why we're doing this interview today, I think. So
it sure is. Well, no time like the present. Let's dig into the questions, guys. So the webinar was The Secret to the Monopoly Board, how to lawfully recoup your credit energy. And this is going back to the age of 18, or I guess if you're in another country, whatever that coming of age is, maybe 21 if it's in the US, whatever. But for many people, if you're, my age, Ian's age, we're both kind of knocking on a little bit now, aren't we? So that's a lot of years of recouping credit. That's a lot of your life that you've been working and in this kind of slavery model where you've got the ability to recoup all of that credit energy. So in terms of the questions, I did say there were some fundamentals, and there are. So let's dig into those first of all. And the very first question that we had was, can you explain clearly what we are actually recouping? Is it tax? Is it credit? Or is it something else?
Well, it's basically the tax on our energy. So, and I'll explain what I mean by that. When you issue a promise to pay, because that's what we're all doing, we're promising to pay in the future. You make a bank payment. That's a promise to pay in the future. You sign a mortgage contract to get a mortgage. That's a promise to pay the bank in the future. Whatever you're doing in terms of paying, what we call pay, is basically a promise to pay in the future. And you can evidence that by looking at a banknote where it says, I promise to pay the bearer. Yep. Although banknotes aren't being used so much anymore, it still says that on the banknote. You can evidence it on the check where it basically says it's a promise to pay in the future. Everything is a promise to pay in the future. And those promises to pay are what's known as securities. So you don't have to be an investment banker and work on Wall Street to be dealing in securities. Everybody who is playing Monopoly on the Monopoly board is dealing in securities. Since the first thing that happens is the issuance of the birth certificate. And a lot of people have got all manner of theories about what is this birth certificate all about? You know, what is that entity that's being described on the birth certificate? Well, of course, the simplest way to look at it is it's an artificial entity that is being created as a proxy for the living man or woman. Okay, so what is that? What do I mean by that? Why do you need a proxy? Well, you need a proxy, which is the birth certificate entity, to play Monopoly. Like the player piece on the Monopoly board.
Can't play Monopoly without your little piece on there. Yeah,
you can't play Monopoly unless you put a piece on the Monopoly board. Well, the piece that you're putting on the Monopoly board is the birth certificate. I say it's a construct because it's not real, it's artificial. But what is its primary purpose? It is a banker. It is a banker. Look at the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. It says a body of persons is a banker. Well, a person is a birth certificate construct. So they've given you a proxy as a banker. You're not a banker, you're a living man or woman, but you are the agent for a banker. The banker is artificial. It's the person. That person is going to issue promises to pay in the future. So everything you're doing on the Monopoly board is a promise to pay in the future, because you can't pay unless you had a silver coin or a gold coin. You can't pay anything, right? Well, who transfers silver coins or gold coins? You can't do that through the internet. Although some people would say that you could, I'm going to say that you can't because it doesn't fit with the digital money that is flowing around for many, many years. Yeah. So what you're actually doing is you're transferring through the banker your energy. That promise to pay in the future is energy. Now, let me make it even more simple for everyone to try and get their head round. Let's suppose that I was really good at cutting hedges. That's what I did. I was a hedge cutter. I've got a fantastic pair of shears. They're really sharp, and I can put all that energy into cutting hedges. Right? Now, let's suppose that you have got a hedge in your garden and you want it cut. And you might call me up and say, Ian, I understand you're a really good hedge cutter. Yeah. And I say, yeah, I've been known to cut hedges. That's what I do. Right. So you might say to me, well, come and cut my hedge. Well, how am I going to cut your hedge without expanding some energy? Yeah. I've got to move the shears. I've got to walk about. I've got to chop the branches and the bushes, whatever it is you want to cut your hedge, however your hedge has been growing. I've got to expand some energy, right? Yeah. So that energy has now become something which you're going to buy, yeah? Yeah. Now, let's suppose that I am not a hedge cutter. Let's suppose that I am working in an office. I'm working and I'm doing administration. Yeah, I'm moving things about. I'm organizing things and as an administrator. Well, how do I move anything around without expanding energy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's suppose that I'm not an administrator. Let's suppose that I am a thinker. I'm going to think about how to solve a problem, right? Well, how am I going to solve a problem without using energy? I have to use energy to make a problem go away or solve it, yeah?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you're a hedge cutter, an administrator, or a thinker, you are using energy to do something on the monopoly board. Well, the unit value of what you are doing is, we call it money. But actually what we've done is we've transferred our energy, no matter whether it was physical labor energy or whether it was mental energy, it's energy, right? So that is what they got us to do. They got us to transfer our energy from the living man, woman, the energy that's in your body that comes from somewhere, and I say it comes from consciousness. They got you to transfer that energy through a promise to pay that was made by a banker, which is an artificial construct, the birth certificate, that is only able to be sitting on the monopoly board because it's artificial itself. And that energy then transfers onto the monopoly board. Now, once you've put the energy on there, I'll ask the next question: can you destroy energy? Is it possible to destroy energy? If you look into the physics of energy, you'll find out that you can't destroy it. All you can do is move it.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever go away, right? You can't burn it. You can't drown it. It's energy. It's infinite. It's everlasting, right? It just moves from one place to another. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Go and get some logs and make a bonfire.
Yeah.
You burn the bonfire, and the logs, they go from logs to ash.
Yeah.
And all the heat moves away from the bonfire up into the atmosphere. Have the logs gone away? They look like they've gone away. The energy that was in the log, that was flames that went up into the atmosphere, has just moved to somewhere else. Energy doesn't go away, it just moves. So your energy, the conscious energy that's in you, has been moved onto the monopoly board through the issuance of securities, which are nothing more than promises to pay. That is what we're talking about. You've put your energy on the board. It never goes away. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't, you can't drown it, burn it. It just moves. And you've moved it onto the monopoly board. And now it's on the monopoly board. It's being used by others on the monopoly board. So now you've got the nominees, the fiduciaries that are using your energy to do something on the board. And most of the nominees on the monopoly board are banks.
Yeah.
And they've been given the ability to convert your energy into currency, which a lot of people call money. And they want to use that energy on the monopoly board because they can use it in all different ways. They can multiply the money supply by using your energy, not with fractional reserve banking, but by something called hypothecation, which is a very long word and difficult to say. But basically, it's a way of multiplying up the effect of the energy. It's leverage. If you had a fulcrum, I don't know whether you can see this, but here is a fulcrum, right? If you put the lever there, the fulcrum point there, you've got all that leverage there, right?
Yeah.
You put it in the middle, you can go like that. Depending on where you put that fulcrum point, you can leverage. That's what leverage is. That is what hypothecation is, right? That's what the investment bankers are doing. They're using your energy and they're multiplying it up through hypothecation. So it expands. The money supply expands. It's the expansion of money. They call it M1, M2, and M3. I could go really deep into this, but we don't need to, right? Basically, it's an expansion of money. It's a multiplication of energy. That is what the banks are doing. They are using your energy to expand the money supply for their own purposes. Now, when they use your energy, because everything on the Monopoly board is operating in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, so the entire Monopoly board, which is artificial, is bankrupt, as confirmed in a House Joint Resolution 192. From 1933 onwards, everything on the Monopoly board, which is a worldwide board, is bankrupt. So all the nominees that are using your energy, that can't go away, it can only be multiplied, they have to pay a tax on the use of your energy. So the investment banks, which are predominantly the nominees on the Monopoly board, they pay taxes for the use of your energy.
Yep.
They actually pretend that they are the owners of your energy, right? They pretend, they presume that they own your energy. And what they do is they file tax returns with the United States Treasury on the assumption that the Treasury is not going to challenge the fact that they say they own your energy. They say that they are the creditors, right?
Yeah.
They don't write it down. It's a presumption.
No. Yeah.
They don't send a contract to the Treasury and say, we swear by Almighty God that these securities in our investment portfolios belong to us. It's just presumed. It's the same presumption when people go and say, my name is Ian Clifford Stamp, which I used to say many years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody said, well, can you prove that? Can you prove your name is Ian Clifford Stamp? And I would have said 30 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, well, here's a birth certificate. That's got a name on it.
My name on it.
That's me, yeah? It's a presumption. I'm not Ian Clifford Stamp, and the bankers, the investment bankers, don't own your energy. But they presume that they own your energy, right? So what they're doing is they're paying taxes on the energy that they have borrowed from you as your nominees. I'll give you another example. If I said to you, Andy, okay, fine, here's my remote control for my TV, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you, Andy, to look after. Who does that remote control belong to?
You.
Me, yeah? But you now got it in your possession, right? I've given it to you to look after. You've now become my nominee, my fiduciary.
Yeah.
And you can go and use my remote control to control my TV with it.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the remote control belongs to me, yeah? So when you put your energy on the Monopoly board, what you're actually doing is you're renting your energy on the board to the nominees who claim it's theirs, but without actually signing any contracts. They just presume it's theirs. But because they have to pay taxes on the use of your energy, they pay taxes to the United States Treasury for the use of your energy. And the United States Treasury doesn't say, well, we better find out where Ian is, because this investment bank over here is using his energy and they're paying us taxes on Ian's energy. So we better try and find out where he is, give it back to him. Because Ian never turned up for the majority of his 60 years in this realm and said, hey, that energy that you're receiving the taxes on United States Treasury belongs to me. I want it back. No, hardly anybody would think to do that because they don't understand how the system works. So what we're doing with the Clifford Protocol is that we're creating a nominee, which is a trust, an international grantor trust, that can file to correct the record. So then now the United States Treasury gets a corrective filing that says, hey, this energy that you're receiving taxes on from the investment bank nominees actually belongs to this trust, this 98 series grantor trust that is a nominee for Ian. Ian is the living man. He's the beneficiary of the trust. And this trust is going to file a tax return to the United States Treasury to say, hey, that tax that you've received from the investment banks on the rental of Ian's energy actually belongs to Ian, and Ian is the beneficiary of this trust. So we are now correcting the record, and we want you to not keep that energy, that tax that the investment banks have paid to you. We want you to give it back to Ian because it belongs to Ian. Remember, energy doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
It just moves around, right? So that energy belongs to Ian, the living man in this example. And Ian has set up a trust. And that trust is now going to file a tax return to correct the record. And the United States Treasury, instead of keeping that tax for themselves, are going to move it from their ledger onto the ledger that it's going to pay it to, or say pay it to, transfer it to Ian's grant or trust of Ian's benefit. Now, Ian can't stand on the monopoly board because Ian is a living man. But Ian can be the beneficiary of the grant or trust that is sitting on the monopoly board that's now going to receive the recoupment of signature credit, which is energy that never disappears, can't go anywhere. It can only move around. All you're doing is moving it back to your nominee trust structure so that you can reuse it. You can actually recycle it. You can become green. You can recycle your energy. Put it back on the board, recoup it. Put it back on the board, recoup it. And by what you're doing in the Clifford Protocol, if you imagine that in your life, however many years you're on in this realm on this planet, right? There's only a certain amount of energy that your body can transfer onto the monopoly board.
Yeah.
Why do you think people run out of energy and retire? Because they can't do it anymore. They can't do the 50, 60, 80-hour weeks anymore because their body isn't able to transmit that energy onto the monopoly board constantly. So they retire, yeah? And if they've got enough energy saved up somewhere in their artificial retirement pension or their artificial investment program, which doesn't have any value at all in reality, then they think that they can retire. But that's becoming something of the past, because it's my prediction going forward that most people will never be able to retire because they will be on the basic social credit. They'll be on the basic universal credit. They won't be able to retire. They'll just be given their rations every week, every month from the government, and they won't. The notion of retirement won't exist.
No. So that answers that question. It's tax that you are recouping. Yeah, it's the tax that's being paid on your energy that's been borrowed and used and benefited from for however many years that may be. The next question, you kind of answered that. How does recouping credit back to the age of 18 actually work in practice? Well, you mentioned the foreign grantor trust acting as nominee, recouping the credit back through that structure on behalf of the living man or woman who is the beneficiary that can then recycle that. But maybe just why does it go back to the age of 18 or back to the the coming of age, whatever that is?
So when you come of age, whether it's 18, 21, 25 in some countries, it's very rare. It actually is up to 25. What's going on here is that it's when the birth certificate construct, the banker can start to issue securities. That is the age that in the legal system of that country, that banking entity can issue securities. So that's why it's basically when did the banker start to operate as a banker? It always was a banker, but it can't operate as a banker until it comes of age. It's like you could drive the car around. If your parents had a big garden, you could go and drive the car around their garden, but you couldn't take it on the road, But when you get to 18 in the UK and you get a driving license, the birth certificate construct gets a driving license. Now you can take the car on the road. Well, when you go and get a bank account, when you get to age 18, now you can start issuing securities because you've now become of age. So it's for the same reason as that. Now, part of the previous question was, how do you know, I hope there is a question. If there isn't, I'm going to answer one right now. How do you track and trace the energy? Is there a question about that?
Do you know what? That is so bizarre. The next question, Ian, is how is the recoupment, kind of similar, how is the recoupment amount calculated if someone does not know their full financial history? So it's kind of the same thing.
Right. So, it's not just waving a wand and guessing. There is everything in this world of securities. If anybody watching this believes that you can hide your bank account, you can hide your cryptocurrency, you can hide your assets, and nobody's going to know where they are, then you are living in a fool's paradise here. You are just being foolish. Everything is recorded. Everything is tracked and traced. This is one of the reasons why the internet was introduced, because nearly everything that everybody does is operating through the internet. There are databases on databases on databases full of data. In fact, even if you don't think that your social media posts are being read, I can tell you they are. If you go all the way back to when the internet first came about and people started using social media, every single post, every single transaction, everything you've ever done, everything you've ever said is being recorded. And it's stored in a database. So if you think that your abandoned credit, your signature credit, isn't already known to the United States Treasury, then that's like saying, well, you could say something on social media and then you could erase it. You can't erase it. You can't erase the record, right? So all of those records that are out there are already in databases.
Yeah.
So when you want to recoup your abandoned credit, it's not like, let's write some numbers down on a bit of paper and no one's going to know, oh, how much do you want? Oh, I'll have 100 million, should I? Well, you can't recoup unless you've actually put the energy on the board.
Yeah.
Because it's all tracked and traced. So you have to realize that you can't just make it up and get away with it, because it's all tracked and traced. Now, if you want to track where, how does this work? The bank that you used, so you must have had a bank account, right? You have a bank account, you have a mortgage, you have a loan or a credit card, you have a utility bill to pay, you have wages and deducting the tax from the wages. Think of all the ledgers. Think of all the information which that amasses up to. It's a huge amount of information, right? It's all stored in databases. So if you want to find the bank payments that you made, the mortgages you took out, the credit cards, the loans that you took out, the taxes you paid on your wages and things of that type, the utility bills that you paid, etc., etc., etc. The list goes on and on and on. It's an endless list. Everything is tracked. And if you've got the ability to find the bank that you used, whatever the bank account was that you used to pay, transfer, issue securities, make deposits, take loans, that bank account is connected to a pool of securities. Securities are investments. This is where the investment banks come in. And those investment pools are also tracked and traced. So everything that's in those investment pools is also tracked. So you've got two levels of tracking. You've got the bank account that originated. That's the signature. That's your signature, the origination of the credit. And then you've got the transference of the credit into these investment pools, which the investment banks trade. And they issue them and they have SEC returns. So that's the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States. They have to put all these securities into pools, into investment accounts, basically. So if you've got an algorithm that can track the creation of the credit, the signature credit, then the transference of the signature credit into investment pools, and then the track and trace of those investment pools through the Securities and Exchange Commission listings, because all of these securities are listed. Everything is tracked and traced right from A through to Z. And then you start to recoup the abandoned credit, and you get your nominee trust to send in a tax return, 1099 OID, and you say, I'm recouping all this abandoned credit, signature credit that originates from these banks, that is held in these securities. the United States Treasury's got an algorithm. It's going to look and see whether all that is true.
Yeah.
You can't just say, I think I fancy 100 million. Why don't we do 100 million and put in a tax return through a 1099 OID for 100 million? You've only just become 18. You've only had one day on the Monopoly board, but you want 100 million? And by the way, this notion that the birth certificate is some kind of an account that's got millions sitting in there just waiting for you to
when you were born
and put it in the lock, turn that lock, lift the treasure chest lid up, and there you go, there's your birth certificate. Millions sitting in there in however they are, gold coins, spoons, silver coins, whatever it is that people got in their head that's sitting in that treasure chest. It doesn't exist.
No. That's you've been watching too much Harry Potter, if that's the case, and the banking system in Harry Potter films. Here's a question, because, well, this is going back to the same question, to be fair, Ian, but now that people understand how that is tracked and traced, and you've given the example of somebody who, maybe they've just turned 18, they clearly don't have the ability to say, oh, let me have 100 million. You've been 18 for a day. You haven't put any real energy, any credit into the system at that point.
Yeah.
But conversely, you could also have somebody that's maybe my age. And I'm thinking, I can kind of remember so far back, but I can't for the life of me remember what bank account I had when I was 18. I think it was the TSB. I'm not sure. And I certainly can't remember how much money I used to make back then and how much energy or credit I've issued right from the age of 18 up to now 56. So how is that, or how does somebody calculate that without, or at least with a reasonable amount of accuracy to be able to do this?
Well, you see, because everything is tracked and traced, the amount of energy that you've put on the Monopoly board is already known to the United States Treasury. So your energy you've put on the board, my energy I've put on the board is two different numbers, yeah?
Yeah.
Everyone's got a different number. If you're 18 in a day, you probably wouldn't have put much on the Monopoly board in terms of energy yet. But if you're 60 like I am, and you've been prolific and you've run endless numbers of ventures and you've done all kinds of things, then the amount of energy that I've put on the board and the amount of energy an 18-year-old is only one day after their 18th birthday is massively different, yeah?
Yeah.
And the notion that the United States Treasury doesn't know how much energy everyone's put on the Monopoly board is ridiculous. Now, let's take this to another level, right? Because I've said on my webinars many, many times, okay, so the IMF publishes a report every single year of how much world debt is valued at. If you go and look at the world debt clock, which you can do if you go on the internet, type in world debt clock, and it comes up on your internet search, you'll see the amount of debt there is in the world. And you'll see a counter that's going up and up and up and up and up and up, and it will never, ever go down. It can't go down. It can only ever go up. So if you were to get the world debt clock up on your computer screen, and then you asked us the question, which is what I asked to the audience on my webinars, if that world debt is to be believed, and it looks quite real, who is it owed to?
Interesting.
Because it's a really good question, I think. People look at it, if they even know it's there, and say, "Well, look at that. This is extraordinary. No wonder the planet's in such a mess. Because look at this debt." Well, what is that debt? That debt is energy. That's the sum total of all the energy that's been put on the Monopoly board since this system came into being. So if you take it from, say, if you take it from 1913, when they started introducing it in like their pilot scheme after the Federal Reserve Act, and then you get up to 1933 when they accelerated it, House Joint Resolution 192. And then you take it even up to 1944, where you've got the Bretton Woods Accord, where nearly every nation in the world adopted this system. And then you take it up to 1973, when there was no gold backing anything at all. And then you put all that energy into the world debt clock. That's your energy. That's yours, mine, Andy's, everybody else's.
And here it is. That's a big number. And this is how much interest is being accrued on that number every second of every day. So, yeah, it's a lot of money that's owed back to you, to me, to everybody else. I guess the big question, or the question that's coming from the webinar itself, though, is how do I calculate what's due back to me with a degree of accuracy? Yes, I get it that it's tracked and traced and the system knows what that is. But I've never tracked and traced it since the age of 18 or 21. So how do I know that whatever, if I move forwards with something like this and I go to, file my credit recoupment, how do I know that I am at least reasonably accurate, not putting in a filing that is above what I'm owed back? How would you answer that for the members?
Well, I'm going to give you an example, right? So, lots of us, and I haven't had one for many, many years, but those people who have a credit card or know what a credit card, how it kind of works, know what it is, know how it works, you get given a limit.
Yeah.
Well, let's imagine that your limit is how much energy you've put on the Monopoly board. Now, my limit is different from your limit, and different from everybody else who's watching this interview. But there is a limit, and that's how much energy you've put on the board, because they already know what that is. So now when you put in your recoupments and you say, right, I want to recoup $1 million, is that over your limit? If you put in 20 million, is that over your limit? If you put in whatever the number is that you want to recoup from age 18, you're not going to be able to know it exactly. There's no way I would know it. I mean, it's nearly impossible to calculate it. But you probably have some idea, broadly speaking. You could probably sit there for a while and think about it and think, well, how much was I earning every year? What mortgages did I have? How many credit cards, loans did I have? Let's just imagine, let's just write it all down over the last X number of years, and that's kind of your limit. But you're not going to be able to get your bank statements out from 30 years ago and calculate those, or even remember your first mortgage. I can't remember I think I vaguely remember my first ever mortgage. I can vaguely remember how much that mortgage was, the face value was, but then I may have got it wrong. It's 40 plus years ago, so I can't remember exactly what the amount was. But does it really matter? Because what we're doing now is we're saying that that's your credit card limit, and you don't need all of that. Let's be honest. Let's be very candid and honest here.
Yeah.
If I said, I need all my energy back from the age of 18, I mean, God knows how much it is.
Yeah.
It probably
it's not necessary, is it?
It's a huge amount, right? Hundreds of millions potentially in my case, right? Now, do I need that back all in one go so that I can spend it and recoup it all in, year by year? Do I really need it? No. How much do I need to be able to do what I want to do, to be able to have the lifestyle I want to have, so that I don't have to, if I was concerned about, my business or my job, if I was in that position where I wanted to change, I don't want, by the way, but many people out there do want to change what they're doing and how they do it. How much do I need? Now I'm going to tell you something else, Andy. In the United States, right, they have lots of lotteries.
Yeah.
So you can win the lottery in the United States. Now they don't give you the lump sum in the United States. They give you a monthly amount. And a lot of people don't know that. I used to trade lottery winnings. It's one of the securities I used to issue. So that's one of the many things I've done in the past. I used to buy people's lottery winnings from them, right? Because you can securitize it. So let's say you won the lottery in the United States. Instead of them giving you a check for $100 million, no, they give you 100,000 a month or 100,000 a year or whatever the value is, right? Because they know that if they give you 100 million, it's probably going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
And I have first-hand experience of, managing 2 lottery winners back in my wealth management days, and their lives were ruined by it because they got a massive amount of money, and then they couldn't handle it, right? So they would have much rather have said, Ian, how much do I need every week, every month, every year? Can I just have that? But they got this huge amount, and it completely blew their minds, and the psychology, and they went off the rails. So that's why in the US they don't give you the lump sum; they give you a monthly amount. So how much do you need? That should really be the question. Not how much can I have, how much do I need?
How much do I need? Yeah, we don't want greed getting into this for sure. So the next question, Ian, is, well, you've answered this already. Does the Treasury already hold a full ledger of our financial activity, even if we don't have the records ourselves? Well, we've kind of answered that one, guys. Yes, they do. But, you don't need to match it like for like.
No,
that's not what we're talking about here.
The question I think people are asking here is that, let's say they wanted 5 million, right?
Yeah.
They needed 5 million for whatever the reason is, right? What I think the question is asking is the Treasury going to say in our ledgers, we've matched that 5 million exactly to what you want to recoup, and you now qualify for it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the question. Can the Treasury
I think it is.
Pull up on their screen exactly how much that this member of Republic of Old Souls, envoy of Republic of Old Souls, wants to recoup? Can the Treasury pull up a database and say, we can see exactly that. We're going to let that guy have that recoupment, right? Now, I'm going to dispel a myth here, because the face value of your mortgage, let's say it's £500,000, right? And you want to recoup that. You're not actually recouping the face value of the mortgage.
No, this is what we spoke about earlier. You're recouping the taxes paid on the securities used.
So you want to recoup 500,000 mortgage. The Treasury will look at how much taxes the investment bank's nominees have paid to them on the use of your energy throughout all sorts of years, right? So that's your credit card limit, right? You can't exceed it. The Treasury knows how much energy that you've put on the board, on the monopoly board, how much tax is being paid on that energy. And you want to recoup some of it. It's like saying, I've got a 10,000 credit card limit and I want to go and spend 2,000.
Yeah.
So you're going to draw 2,000 of your 10 in that example. 500,000 of your 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, whatever the value of your energy is on the board, that's what you're going to draw down against. Now, the Treasury is going to say, and there is a constraint, right? So I want to explain this because a lot of people are going to get carried away here, right? Every year, the nominees, the investment bank nominees, pay to the United States Treasury taxes on the use of our energy.
Yeah.
And they pay it under what's called the 945 tax module.
Yeah.
But they also pay taxes for other things. And if you take the entire amount of tax that all the investment bank nominees are paying, in the last 3 years, it's about $80 billion as an average per year. So that is the amount of recoupment that you could recoup in a year, not one individual, but our community.
Our community combined. Yeah.
Because you can't go to the Treasury and say, 30 years ago, I took a mortgage out and I want to recoup that mortgage from 30 years ago, because those taxes have already come and gone. So you can only set them against the taxes being received in this year. or last year or the previous year, because you can only go back 3 years in terms of the amount of taxes that you can tap into that the Treasury has received on your energy. So you can't go back you can't say to the Treasury, go back 30 years, take the taxes that you received 30 years ago and give them to me.
No.
You can only take it out of the last 3 years worth of tax receipts, not 30 years ago. So there is a constraint. And
I get that.
If you've got a question on this, I'm going to ask a question, right? How many people can do this? Is there a question on this?
There is, in terms of, scalability. We can certainly get to that. Let's just put a pin in that for a second then. And I think the best thing to do is let's move through the questions that we've got. And we will get to that one, because it is one that's been asked in terms of, scalability, and are we going to wipe out the Treasury by doing all this recoupment? There's things like that in there. So we can certainly get to that. The next section is to do with the structure and the trusts. And again, going back to the free man on the land kind of beliefs, the first question is, will recoupments be accessed through structures like the Sestake V Trust or Asset Fortress? So again, I think people they're misunderstanding what the Asset Fortress protocol is, certainly misunderstanding what the Sestake V side of things is, thinking that there's this trust or this pot with all this cash in there that they can just access. So
yeah, I remember first reading about this years ago, and a lot of people believe that the baby, when it comes in, and they believe that the baby is being registered through the birth certificate.
Yeah.
Well, I say that it's not the baby that's being registered, it's the placenta that's being registered, because it's a decedent. It becomes a decedent estate, and it's diametrically linked through DNA to the baby that becomes a living man or woman much later on, 18, 21 years later. Yeah. But a lot of people say, well, your Sestake V Trust is the baby's weight in gold.
Yeah. Hence that phrase, worth its weight in gold. Yeah.
Worth its weight in gold, right?
Yeah, I've heard that one as well.
And then other people say, well, actually, the Sestake V Trust is a sort of division of the amount of currency in circulation. So they're kind of going in the right direction. But what they're missing is that everybody's got a different value of energy that they've put on the monopoly board.
Yeah.
So it's not like if I was 18 in one day and I've got a Sestake V Trust, is my trust worth the same as your trust, Andy, and your 56?
Yeah, I get you.
No.
Yeah. And this is what people are thinking, isn't it? That it's a prefixed amount of money in a pot. It's just, how do I unlock that?
No, you see, what you are doing is you are recouping your energy back to its source. Now, you can't recoup what you haven't put on the monopoly board.
No.
You can only recoup what you've put on the board. So if you're 21 or 41 or 61, you would have put a different amount of energy on the board.
Yeah.
So you can't label everybody with the same value. It is also about your lifestyle. Now, some people, don't put much energy on the board at all. They don't play the monopoly game very much. Other people like me have been prolific. I've been moving round and round the board since I was 19 at a rate that many people wouldn't even be able to imagine, because I've been prolifically doing it. So the amount of energy I've put on the board and the amount of energy other people put on the board are two very different things. So it's got nothing to do with the trust. It's got nothing to do with the baby's weight in gold or anything like that. It's got to do with your economic activity. How much energy have you put on the board? And that is linked to how much you can recoup. There is a direct correlation. The notion that there is some secret account that the Treasury has got and they've sort of locked it away somewhere, and all you've got to do is send some paperwork in, because I've seen a lot of people have tried to do this. The Treasury's got a secret account. It's called a Treasury Direct account. And all I've got to do is find how to write some words down on some bits of paper, send it to the United States Treasury, and they're going to send back my account, the secret account that they're holding in my name. It's just, I mean, it's just ludicrous.
Yeah.
When you think about it, when you stand back from it and think, are they really going to do that? Are they really going to get some papers in and say, oh, Steve's just realised he's got 100 million sitting there. We better undo that vault.
Yeah.
Better go over
Let him have
it and take his 100 million out and send it to him. But don't tell anybody else, because if everybody else gets to know, they'll all be sending in their claims with these bits of paper that we've just received. Yeah. I mean, you can't really make it up. But unfortunately, a lot of people are doing this.
Yeah. And that goes back to these beliefs that are not based on fact. So, okay, so that's answered that one. The next question is, do members need to create their own trust, or is everything handled through the ROS structures?
Everything is facilitated. The ability to create a trust doesn't just end with creating a trust. I mean, you can create a trust by you and I, Andy, here's my remote control for my TV. We've just created a trust.
Yeah.
So you've got to be clear on what we're actually doing here. We're not creating a trust because you can everyone's creating trusts all the time. This isn't actually a trust in that sense. What it is it's a construct. It's an artificial construct with an EIN number with a trust indenture.
Yeah.
And that trust has got a trustee, and that trustee is professional trustee that can interface with the banks. When you want to receive the recoupments, that professional trustee that is appointed as the trustee of this trust, which is an artificial construct, just very similar to the birth certificate construct. That's got a reference number, yeah? The birth certificate's got a reference number.
Yeah.
The trust that we're creating or facilitating for each of the members has an EIN number, a tax identification number. The birth certificate construct has a tax identification number as well, an ITIN number, an SSN number. That is a tax identification number. So it's not a trust in the sense of it's a bit of paper, or it's an agreement between two men and women, or two men, man, woman, whatever. That's a trust. No, this is not that kind of trust. This is a artificial construct that has a tax reference number, that has got a professional trustee appointed to it, that can now file tax returns through an electronic filing license. It's not just a trust.
Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Next question is, do you need to be a secured party creditor to access these recoupments?
You don't need to be one. Let's just define what it actually means, right? The living man or woman can take out a lien over the birth certificate construct. And although it's very interesting and there are some benefits in doing that, is it essential if a grantor trust that is separate from the birth certificate construct wants to recoup abandoned credit? It is not the birth certificate that is recouping the abandoned credit. It is the grantor trust, a separate artificial construct. Now, being a secured party creditor, that is the birth certificate construct that is going to act as the grantor of the newly formed grantor trust entity or construct that is going to file the tax returns. There is an advantage in the grantor, because the grantor is the birth certificate construct. It's not the living man or woman. There is an advantage in that artificial entity, the birth certificate entity, having a lien over it from the living man or woman, but it's not essential. It's just a little bit. It's a little bit of insurance. It's a little bit of comfort, but it is not. It's not essential at all.
Okay. If someone has a partner, a spouse, or adult children, can they recoup on their behalf, or must each person do that individually?
Well, you can't recoup for a minor. They have to be a banker. They
Yeah.
have to have created the credit as a banker. So that's 18 or 21 or more. The banker, the birth certificate construct, is going to issue those promises to pay, and that's going to put energy on the board. So that's like opening the account is the artificial construct. Got to put that credit on the board, that energy on the board. Now, if you give power of attorney to somebody else, they can recoup for, like, under a power of attorney. Yeah, that can happen. Power of attorney, because it's an agent. You see, what you're doing with a power of attorney is you're appointing an agent. And the agent has just as much rights to recoup as the principal.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yes, you
So
can.
somebody that might have aged parents that may not be able to, go through the process, then they could do that on behalf of their aged parents, let's say, as an example, if they had power of attorney to do so.
Yeah, but you can't recoup credit for your children because they haven't put any energy on the board. So
exactly. It said adult children here, which again is kind of an oxymoron in itself. So I'm guessing that, and let's be fair, I'm not personally convinced that somebody who is 18 is an adult. Not from my experience with my kids anyway. Takes a little bit longer, I think, to reach maturity than 18, but maybe what they're saying there is, if I've got an 18-year-old who has maybe been through putting some credit on the board here over the last year, maybe they're reaching 19, 20, whatever, but they still kind of feel they're a little bit immature to maybe handle this as a responsibility themselves. Can I do it for them? I guess, again, in that instance, power of attorney would be the same thing, yeah?
Well, you see that the grantor trust they're going to be the grantor of a trust.
Yeah.
Whoever it is who's recouping the credit has to be the grantor of the trust. An agent can set the trust up, but the trust has got to be whoever is recouping the abandoned credit, whatever entity that is. I can't set a trust up for you, Andy, and recoup your abandoned credit.
No.
Because that would be fraud, right?
Yeah.
But I can say to you, can I be your agent? And I set up all the paperwork where you are the grantor of a trust.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be your agent that is going to facilitate all this, but only with your permission. So you would grant me an agency, give me a power of attorney to do it. And then I could go and do it. But I can't just go around thinking, because if you think about this, if I could recoup everybody else's abandoned credit, I could go through the phone book and write down everyone's name and set up a grantor trust for everybody in the phone
everybody.
Book, recoup all their abandoned credit, right?
Yeah. Gotcha.
I don't think that would be what I think. I'd end up in jail quite quickly if I did that.
Yeah, for sure. So let's now look at process and just a bit of technical clarity. We've had some questions there as well. What are the most common misunderstandings people have about how this process actually works? That's a good question, actually.
It's a very good question. I think that most people get very confused about what money is, as we've discussed earlier on. They don't really know what money is. They might believe in all these different theories, the 3 theories of money that Professor Richard Werner talked about. They're probably hung up on one of those 3 theories, and you can't really shift them away from it. So how on earth can you recoup the money if you don't even know what it is? So you've got to start with that, right? So that's probably one of the issues that a lot of people are wrestling with, is once they get their head around what credit really is, what currency is, how it gets there. We're all issuing these securities, etc., etc. If you haven't got that under your belt in your foundation knowledge, then it's going to be very confusing.
Not going to
and
make
then
sense.
I think a lot of people are thinking, well, it goes back to the birth certificate, what we just discussed just now. Oh yeah, what I'm really doing is I'm unlocking that birth certificate trust, and what I'm doing is I'm making a withdrawal from my birth certificate trust, because that's everybody's got one of those, and all I'm doing is Ian's finding a way to tap into that birth certificate trust. So go along with Ian's Clifford protocol, and he's found the key to my trust. Unlock it, lift the lid up, let's dip our hands into all those gold coins in there and take some out. Well, that I think is, a lot of people have got that belief that somehow Ian's found the secret to the treasure chest of the birth certificate trust. Well, Ian hasn't found that secret because it doesn't exist.
No.
What Ian's found the secret to is the financial ledger keeping of the United States Treasury, and the fact that all of this energy can be recouped through tax returns. Yes. That's the secret that Ian's uncovered. Got nothing to do with birth certificate trusts, because those don't exist. So I think this technical sort of misunderstanding is, what is money? People don't understand it. What is the credit that you're recouping? Where does it come from? Has everyone got the same amount? Is it just the lucky few that have come across this information that are able to access their birth certificate trust? Obviously, that's not the case. And then if you get over the first two, you start to understand what money is. You start to understand that there's no birth certificate. Then the next one is, well, we've read that other people have tried this and they've gone to jail.
Yep, true.
Yeah, we've read about this 1099.
We've spoken about this, yeah.
You know, that some people have gone to jail. So Ian's that really clever fraudster that's going to induce us into doing something that could put us in jail. So that's the next level.
Unpack that for a minute?
Yeah, let's unpack that, shall we? Because of the incomplete nature of people's research, those that have sort of gone down the pathway of learning about this, who mostly haven't understood it at all, they just download bits of information from different sources, cobble it together, and copy what other people have been doing, and then talk about it and as if they actually understand what it is they're doing. I could say Simon Goldberg fits right into this category, right?
Yeah. So
Simon Goldberg, who offers a 1099 OID tax recoupment scheme, he doesn't understand it from start to finish.
No.
He even says he doesn't understand it in his witness statements, and I've read them. But apparently there's some experts that he works with who do understand it. So according to Simon Goldberg, it's that mysterious that he can't understand it. So he has to bring in an expert who does understand it. And then he makes up a fictional character name for that expert. All right. Paul McDeeb, which is a character from a movie, right? So, or whatever the pronunciation of that is. So you see, you get people who don't understand it, but know that there's something about it that looks very attractive, that they can copy how other people have done it, and they might get a result. And then if you're Simon Goldberg, you then put out your information to your followers and say, well, you know, the success rate is 3 out of 10. So 3 people out of 10 are going to get a result.
Yeah.
So it's like a lottery ticket. There's only 10 lottery tickets available, and 3 of you are going to win the lottery. Do you like to buy that lottery ticket? You've got a 3 out of 10 chance of winning. And if you win, then you're going to have an abundance of cash coming your way. So that's if you're Simon Goldberg and you want to sell it like a lottery where there's only 10 tickets and 3 of you are going to win.
It's not bad odds, though, when you think about it, is it? That's quite good odds. But then what happens to the other 66%?
Well, the other
70%.
Well, you could say the winners are the ones who actually have the highest risk because they actually get an economic benefit out of it, and they're the ones who might go to jail because they actually got a, you know. So even if you win, you might lose. That's the game that Simon Goldberg wants you to play. It's an extraordinary game. You paid money to Simon Goldberg. He pretends that he doesn't understand what it is, but he's got an expert who does understand it. The expert is actually Simon Goldberg, but he's just made up a fictional character name. He tells you that only 3 out of 10 people are going to get a result. So if you want to play the game, if you pay Simon Goldberg X £1,000, he will put you into that program. No, you already know that you might be one of the 7 out of 10 that doesn't get anything. You might equally be one of the 3 out of 10 that does get something. But he
Yeah.
doesn't tell you that what he's actually going to do is you're going to file all your tax returns where you are filing them as a taxpayer because you're using the birth certificate construct to file with the United States Treasury. And as soon as they receive your tax return, it's not yours because you're a living man, but the tax return for the body corporate birth certificate construct, they're going to put in their system, this is a taxpayer, this is a debtor, we're not going to pay out. So they're going to send out a frivolous filing penalty for $5,000 if you're lucky. And if you're not lucky and you get a check because they give you one by mistake, they might take it back from you, or even worse, they might put you in jail because a taxpayer has no entitlement to recoup the credit because the credit energy can only be recouped via a nominee that is known to them as the holder in due course of the credit. A taxpayer can never be the holder in due course of the credit. Taxpayer is not a nominee.
Yeah. We've seen all sorts of horror stories, haven't we, over the last few months of people that have been through this process. So, okay. Do members need to fully understand the technical mechanics, or is it enough to follow the system?
I don't think anyone is likely to understand it all unless they study it in the way I have done. Even if they read all my technical papers that I've written, from my experience, most people still won't understand it.
No.
And the reason why they won't understand it is not because I'm trying to say that I'm more intelligent than them. It's just that I've been researching it for longer.
Yeah.
And I've been able to join the dots up over a long period of time. It didn't all come to me in one go. So if anybody's going to read my papers and then get it all in one go, I'd be amazed. It's taken me years.
Yeah.
And I've been looking at it for a long time. So if anybody just reads my paper and thinks, oh, I'm going to get it all now, I'm going to download the information Ian's written in these research papers, and just because I've read these papers, I'm going to understand it all? No. It's like taking an apprentice, right? If you go and do an apprenticeship, could you read the book and then turn up at your apprenticeship and say, I don't need to do the apprenticeship because I've read the book?
Yeah. I'm just going to rebuild that car engine right here in the
I want to read the book.
garage.
Build the engine. Well, you're actually going to have to build the engine to learn it.
Yeah.
Now, I say the best way to learn how to build an engine, and I have built them when I was much younger, is to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even better than that, teach it.
Yeah.
So if all of our people who are wanting to learn this, if all the members want to learn this, I say the best way the best method to learn it is to teach it. Come and teach it to me. Come and break it down.
At least as a starting point, read some of the material, So we're not saying you have to understand all the technicalities of this, but it would be quite useful if you did have a decent understanding of it, because we still get questions. Clearly, we've had a lot of questions today. Now, granted, many of those questions may be coming from people who are brand new to this, but I absolutely guarantee you that some of those questions will have come from members that have been with us for years, and they're still not understanding the fundamentals, which says to me they're not reading your papers.
The problem we've got, Andy, is that it is quite technical, and it's a big shift away from what people already believe. So you've got two major problems here.
Yeah.
If it was universally known about, it would be much easier to learn the technical side of it. But because it's not common practice to know it, you've got a barrier. You've got this cognitive dissonance barrier, and then you've got the technical barrier. Well, technical barrier on its own is quite daunting to learn. Well, then you put cognitive dissonance in front of that, it's nearly impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a challenge for sure. We've got quite a few segments to get through here, Ian, so I'm going to move this on as well. There's one other question here before we move on to the next segment. which was, how does the yearly total outgoing amount relate to the concept of tax paid on the debt? We did kind of touch on this earlier, that, you know, if you had a mortgage, 500,000, that's money moved, money out, whatever you want to call it. How does that relate to the tax that's paid on that debt?
Well, the tax that's paid on the debt, in order to understand that, you've got to understand what an original issue discount is. You see that there is a future value of everything. Your mortgage has a future value. So the payments that you're going to make on the mortgage has a future value. That future value is discounted back to a current value. That is what's known as securitization. And the amount of tax is being paid under the original issue discount is a proportion of the future value paid out every year. So you see, if you're paying, you know, if your mortgage is 100,000 face value mortgage, and you're paying, easy numbers, just to say it was 10% interest rate, you're paying 10,000 a year, and you're going to pay that for 25 years. That means you're paying 250,000.
Yeah.
So the value of the mortgage isn't 100,000; it's 250,000.
Yeah.
Because it's the sum of the payment, right? And then you discount that 250,000 into year one, it's got a value. And then you discount it into year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6. So every year that you are, the investment bank is using that credit, the current value of the security, which is the discounted value back to today, they have to pay tax on the amount of the energy that they're using year by year.
Yeah.
It's quite complicated.
Yeah.
But basically, it's a future value that's discounted to a current value, and the tax that's paid on the current value of the securities is the original issue discount.
Yeah. And I guess that will change year on year on year as that security increases in value. So I'm assuming so would the tax paid for that year.
The amount of tax being paid is going to change year by year. There's other factors that change the amount of taxes. The amount that's declared and paid on the modules, the 945 tax modules, it's not the same every year. If you look at the taxes being paid by all the big investment banks, the amount of tax they're paying on the 945 module goes up and down.
Yeah.
It's not the same every year.
Yeah. But suffice to say, it's the taxes. Just to make this clear for everybody, it's the tax that's being recouped. It's not the money that left your bank or the mortgage amount. It's the tax that's paid on those securities. That is what's being recouped. And over a long period of time, that is going to be more than enough for you to be able to live a life of abundance. And as you mentioned, follow that pathway of your genius if that's what you want to do. So we're not trying to marry like for like here. We're trying to look at, you know, what's a reasonable amount of money for you to live off without being greedy, without being selfish. We're not looking for people who want to buy 20-bedroom mansions and 5 Lamborghinis. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for people who have a genius talent, who can contribute to our freedom plan, potentially as well, with something of value for humanity. And give them a financial vehicle to be able to do that. That's all this is about, guys.
This is exactly what it's about. We're not looking for attracting people that want to go and buy a luxury yacht with a helicopter on the back and get off the yacht and drive their Lamborghini up to their mansion and have 20 servants who's going to give them whatever they want in their lifestyle. We're not looking at that. We're looking at people. We want to attract people that want just enough to have an abundant lifestyle, to use their talent and join our community. We're not looking for people who want to get a lottery ticket and get the winning lottery every time that they sign up for it. We're not looking for that.
No. Okay, let's move on. This is one that we get a lot, but we're going to go through this very, very quickly. We're not going to start getting into what happened in September or any of that jazz. We're just not doing it, guys. But there are a couple of questions here, and I said that we would answer them one at a time, and we're not missing questions out. So let's cover these questions. What is happening with 2022 and 2023 recoupments, and why are some members still waiting? In brief, Ian.
In brief, that there is a process, and the process, like all processes, has a timeline. First of all, you've got to be able to you've got to create the trust, get the EIN number, install all the components in the trust, get the indenture, blah, blah, blah. Then you've got to be able to find the securities. So we have to find the matching securities that will identify which nominee banks are going to be paying the taxes to the United States Treasury. Then we've got to make sure that the amount of the taxes that we want to recruit for everybody who's got the same nominee bank, because we're grouping all of our members under the names of nominee banks. We've got to make sure that they've paid enough taxes to equal or greater than the amount that our members want to recoup.
Yeah.
If you've got 100 members that want to recoup the taxes that have been paid by Morgan Stanley, the nominee investment bank, if Morgan Stanley's paid $100 million in tax in a year, and our members want to recoup 200 million, it's not going to work,
No.
Because the membership's tax recoupment can't exceed the amount of taxes that Morgan Stanley paid. So we're going to have to address that. We're going to have to get Morgan Stanley's taxes. We're going to have to move tax from their other tax modules onto the 945 tax module, so that it's equal to or greater than the amount of the recoupment our members want to draw down.
Yeah.
So let's suppose that that's been achieved. Then you've got to file the 1099 OID. So that's done electronically. It's done by the electronic filing officer. So this is a licensed filing officer who files electronically for each of the grantor trusts. And then that's recorded by the IRS system electronically. And then they're going to go and investigate.
Yep.
They're going to go and look into these recoupment claims that have been made by an electronic filing officer under 1099 OID. They're going to have a look into it to make sure that it matches up to their system. And then when it matches up their system, they're going to issue a wages and tax transcript.
Yep.
And then that's their kind of confirmation that, we've matched the algorithms, matched up the amount of the credit that's being, or taxes being recouped. We figured it out. We can see the grantor trust is bona fide. We can see the filing of the tax return is all being done appropriately. And then the United States Treasury is going to wait for the claim, because the claim is what's called a 1041. That's the tax return claim on the wages and tax transcript. So you've got to make that claim. And before you can make the claim, you've got to set up the bank account to receive the funds.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a banking facility to receive the recoupment funds.
Yeah.
So your banking partner that is going to be offering an account for the grantor trust that is going to receive the recoupments, you've got to set that up. Okay. So you've got all these different steps, and those steps can take 6 months to 9 months from start to finish.
Yeah.
With a fair wind, with no sabotage, with no IRS going on their 2-month sabbatical every year between November and January, with no world wars where everything shuts down.
Yeah.
So I can't answer the question exactly how long is it going to take.
We can't.
All I can tell you is that there is a process, and we figured out how to do every step of it. And why would we want to make it any longer than necessary? Because we get our freedom plan wants the 20% of the recoupments minimum to finance free energy, the alternative health, the water from the atmosphere, the communication systems, the travel systems, and everything else that we're building.
Yeah. We can't wait to get that started, but we are having to wait to get that started because this is what's going to fund it. And like you said, the wages and tax transcript, that is pure hard evidence that this process works. We were there in July last year. We started getting evidence of that. I'm not going to ferret through all my pieces of paper on my desk, guys, but to just pass my laptop here, I have both mine and my wife's transcript evidence from last year. Problem that I got with that, and maybe many of you have as well, is guess who was my trustee at the time? Amy Sanger. So let's not get into all of those details. If you want to learn about that, go to our ROS Media channel, watch some of the videos that Ian and I have done on the September sabotage, and you'll understand why what should have already taken place hasn't taken place yet. We've literally had to start again with brand new trusts that are squeaky clean, new EIN numbers, and Ian's just explained the process. It is a process. There's no definitive timeline, but what we do know and what you really need to be latching onto here is that the process works. We've already proved that with 600 million in tax transcript evidence. All we need now is for this to move through exactly the same process, because we've not changed anything. We're doing it in exactly the same way as we did it before, and you will see your recoupments. It just requires a bit of patience, guys. And if I can be patient, I'm sure you can too. So I'm going to move on from that question, Ian, because there are 2 or 3 questions there that are exactly the same, really. You know, when should members realistically expect to start seeing recoupments coming through? We've just given you a broad timeline, but there are so many external factors that can change that, from wars to IRS shutdowns from November through to January. There's lots of different factors here, but I hopefully you get the picture.
Yeah, I think, Andy, what people are saying is, look, we've been in it since 2024. A lot of people want to say they've been in it since before then. They haven't. We didn't do any tax returns until early 2025. So I've heard stories. I've had people say to me, Ian, I've been waiting for this for years. It's like, well, you haven't been waiting for us to do it for years, because we only started doing it in 2025. So you haven't been doing it for years with us. You might have been thinking about it for years, and you might have been in a pilot scheme that started in 2024, but we didn't file for all of our members in the way that we're doing it today with the grantor trust until 2025, right?
Yeah.
So there was a pilot scheme in 2024 that was doing it in a different way, and Lisa Griffin, when Lisa Griffin was around. But the way that we're doing it today and the way that we did it in 2025 started in January 2025. So when I hear the story of Ian, you know, we've been waiting for years for this system, this Clifford protocol to pay out. Well, we only started doing it in January, February of 2025. So we're now in we're now in March of 2026. So this system, the Clifford protocol, only started about a year ago, just over a year ago. So we haven't been waiting for 3 years for the Clifford protocol to pay out. It would have paid out within 9 months of starting it in 2025.
Well, you think about that. We started the pilot, we started in January, and we had tax transcript evidence by June, July time. So, you know, that gives you at least a reasonable understanding of the time frame taken to receive confirmation from the IRS, as in, here's your money, where do you want it? Here's the recoupment, where are we sending it to? The next step is the banking rails, as we've already mentioned. So
if 2025 is anything to go on, then in 2025, we filed in around February for a lot of our members, and we got wages and tax transcripts actually started coming in June. Lots of them came in July and August and September. And then they would have, checks would have been, or recoupments would have been arriving probably in September, October time, right?
Yeah.
So that is the timeline. If we learn from 2025, it might happen quicker than that. You never know. It might be longer than that, but that's based on 2025's empirical evidence of how long it took. Now we're now filing again. We've had to replace everything from that we did in 2025. We've had to redo it all again because of the sabotage. Which, by the way, we haven't come back to everybody and said, you know what, we were sabotaged. Can you pay the same again? Because we need to do it all again.
Yeah, Amy's got your money, not us. Yeah, we haven't got it. Amy took it. So we need the same sort of administrative costs to be covered, and we would like another donation, please. We haven't done that. We're going through this all over again, still with all the team, all involved in that, still having to carry all of that overhead. and pushing it forwards for everybody. So, like I said, a little bit of patience, guys. That's all we're asking for. Right, let's move on. Let's talk about setup of this, just so that people have got some kind of understanding of the practicalities of it. How do members actually get started properly? Is there a clear step-by-step process?
My information is, and I haven't looked in the last few weeks, is that on the platform that we provide to everybody, there is a journey on the platform that takes you through step by step what's going on. And the head of the tax filing department, Tasia, will be issuing communications, inviting you to upload things. There's a whole range of information that's going to be provided about what the journey looks like before you start it. And then when you're on the journey, you're going to be invited to take part in steps of that journey as and when that step is required to be made.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Whether it be your data capture or whether it be uploading your bank statements or whatever it may be. So next question is, do members need consultations before proceeding, or can everything be followed through the platform? That's a good one.
Well, at the moment, there is a consultation. We are working on an automated onboarding because, quite frankly, it should only be people who've got lots of questions that need to speak to a consultant. If people are ready to go ahead who don't need to ask lots of questions, they need to be. We are going to make it possible for them just to go ahead without having to have a consultation. But that feature isn't there at the moment. It's one of the many projects that we've got in parallel, running in parallel. We have a lot of projects being developed, all in parallel. All these things take time to develop, and there are many projects in the works at the moment. So it will come though.
Excellent. All right, moving on. Global and technical questions for members outside the US. How does this apply internationally, particularly in countries with different banking structures?
So no matter where the bank is, with only a very, very few exceptions, the signature credit is registered in the United States system. There's only a few exceptions in the world. So it doesn't matter where you are or where your signature created the credit or the currency. It matters about the fact that the securities are all being traded in Wall Street in New York.
Yeah.
That is where your taxes are being paid from. The taxes that you're going to be recouping that go to the Treasury are all originating in New York. The investment bank is paying the Treasury from New York to the United States Treasury, and the United States Treasury is going to reroute the taxes that they have received into your grant or trust, whether you're in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Switzerland, United Kingdom. It doesn't matter, because the taxes are being paid by a New York investment bank nominee who's renting your energy and paying taxes on it to the United States Treasury.
Yeah, perfectly explained. Thank you. Okay, are processes like the 1099 OID relevant globally or only within the US system? So similar but different kind of question.
I mean, the United States dollar, you have to, nearly everybody out there that I've ever met doesn't understand what the reserve currency means, right? At the moment, I mean, there is a big challenge on it, but at the moment, the United States dollar is the world reserve currency. Now, unless you ask economists or financial services experts, nobody knows what that means. I can tell you what it means. It's very simple, right? Everything is balanced back to the dollar.
Yeah.
It's not like that you can go into your foreign exchange dealer and get some dollars when you want to go on holiday to America. That's one way of seeing the exchange rate, right, of between one currency and another. That's the surface. That's the retail view of currencies, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking at the IMF, International Monetary Fund, where all of this world debt is being recorded, It's all being recorded in United States dollars.
Yeah. That clock I brought up, that was all in dollars.
Yeah, even if you think that you can go and buy some XRP or some Bitcoin, even that is balanced back to the dollar.
Yeah.
I'm going to show, I might do a webinar on cryptocurrency, because a lot of people are completely confused about their beliefs about how cryptocurrency works and how it's private and how it's got nothing to do with the system, et cetera, et cetera. And it's another myth. It's another psyop, really, that people are being drawn into. Everything is balanced back to the United States dollar, unless it loses its status as the world reserve currency, which is being challenged at the moment, by the way, with this war that's going on. At the moment, everything is balanced back to the dollar. Go and have a look at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and see if they record all of the different currencies. No, they only record the dollar. Everything, the world there is in dollars.
Okie dokie. So moving on. Capacity and scaling concerns. We've had a couple of questions come here. There are concerns about processing bottlenecks and delays. What's being done behind the scenes to handle increasing demand? Well, we've already kind of mentioned the timeline. We haven't gone into an awful lot of detail about the sabotage in September, because we've done that multiple times already. So I'm just going to say this: if people think we're sitting on our asses here doing nothing, then I would politely say think again. Maybe, I mean, how do you want to address that, Ian? What's being done behind the scenes?
Well, it's what isn't being done. There's nothing that should be done that isn't. We're not sitting here thinking, what should we do now? Oh, maybe we'll spend some time looking into recoupment of abandoned credit. No, it's the number one thing on our project list. There's loads of other projects, but without the recoupment process delivering to our members, then everything else doesn't really have a lot of substance to it. I mean, you could argue that you could carry on without abandoned credit, but it's the fuel, it's the petrol for our engine. So, if we don't have the abandoned credit, everything else we're trying to do with the freedom plan, with providing people with abundance, with everything, just pretty much everything, with the exception of the commerce protocol, the envoy protocol, and the asset fortress, which you could use independently. Everything else relies on the recoupment of abandoned credit. So what you've got, everybody needs to understand, and they're never going to, so it doesn't really matter how many times I say it. The motivation of what we're doing is to finance the freedom plan.
Yeah.
That is why I sit here every day, 7 days a week, as I explained on my interview just recently with Mel Clark. I'm not sitting here because I want to make some money. I'm just not. Now, the only way we can get the finance to finance the freedom plan is to take a share of all the recoupments.
Yeah.
That share of the recoupments goes to the Republic, goes to the Old Souls Nation, which is a foundation in Panama that I set up 2.5 years ago to finance the freedom plan.
Yep.
Which will need a very substantial budget.
Yeah.
Now, so how are we going to get from where we are now to there? Well, how we're going to do it is by using technology. Andy, this is true, because I've just been rolling out all my plans on how we turn projects, how we deliver projects more efficiently. And we're going to use AI agents to enable us to scale up. Because an organization of the size that we are now is a fraction of what we're going to be processing in the next few months in terms of new members joining and all the administration processes, is a small fraction of what we will be processing going forward. Now, I've had the experience of running a very scalable organization that had hundreds of thousands of clients. I know what it's like. You go from hundreds of clients to thousands, to then tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. There's a huge difference between 100 people and 100,000 people that you're processing. Huge difference. It's like going from playing Sunday morning football to playing in the Champions League.
Yeah.
The gulf of difference is enormous. So if you're going to be able to scale this up, you have to be able to use technology. You have to be able to use the use of AI, I'm afraid to say. AI is the tool that we're going to be using to scale this right up. We're going to use AI for the freedom plan. It's a paradox.
It is. It is. I don't think any of us here like it, but we also recognize there are some benefits in using it for certain things.
If you're going to scale an organization up, and because a lot of people probably want to know what my vision is, and I have explained it before, but again, very few people understand what my vision looks like. I have a vision of up to 1 million people in the world that are envoys. They're all recouping abandoned credit year by year. That abandoned credit comes from the 80 billion that is being paid on average in taxes by the investment banks as nominees.
Yeah.
Divide 80 billion by 1 million, and that's basically the amount that would be available on average for each of our members.
Yeah.
It's about 800,000 per member, right?
Yeah, per year.
Per year.
Yeah.
Which is more than enough for anybody, in my opinion, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
Way more than anybody would need, right? So in my vision, there is up to 1 million that are living in different countries. You don't all have to join a commune somewhere, move to Madagascar and carve out some jungle and build a community, which some people think is the only way to get freedom. You don't need that. That isn't going to work, because you still need to have interaction with society.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants to move from where they live now and go somewhere else. People like where they live. But if you could access all of the services that you need, and you don't have to rely on the power and the health system and the water and the food and all the other things that we all rely on today, if you had access to all of those services that were independent, and they weren't going to be controlled, and you weren't going to be controlled, and your movements weren't going to be curtailed by the track and trace and everything else. And if you could get rid of the nanobot technology that we've all got in us so that they can't control our minds, and if you can operate independently of their system, free, live free, that's my vision.
Yeah.
But it's not for 9 billion people on the planet to do it.
No.
It's for up to 1 million, which is a tiny, minuscule percentage of the world population. So if you want to be one of those that joins this Old Souls nation within the Republic of Old Souls as your belief, that's what we're looking to recruit.
Yeah.
But it's not for everybody. And how we're going to scale it is by using AI. We're going to use the very thing that they're bringing in to enslave us to set us free.
Yeah.
That's the irony of it.
Well, I can't think of a better way to use it. Okay, moving on. Why continue scaling outreach if there are still members waiting to be processed?
Well, let's just talk about the ridiculousness of that question.
Yep.
So we have an organization that has over 50 people every month invoicing for their time.
Yeah.
That number was around 80 people before the sabotage occurred. Yeah. We have a load of other expenses that we have to fund. It's not just people's invoices. There's a whole range of other expenses that have to be paid every month. So, I'm going to turn that question back, Andy. Can you give me some examples of how an organization could finance its overhead cost unless it was raising new donations from new people or existing people? Can you tell me, Andy, how an organization would do that?
Yeah, well, you could go and rob a bank, I suppose. You could do that. You could
Yeah,
steal some money. You could launder money. That might be another
yeah,
good one. You could maybe print some fake money
yeah.
and set yourself up with a fake printing press and do it that way.
Maybe I could ask everyone who's currently drawing down an invoice because they've got expenses of their own to
Hmm.
work for free.
Yeah, I'd be fine. Feeding my 4 children, running my car on fresh air, um, being able to do all those things for nothing. Nothing
Yeah.
would please me more than to do this for nothing. But the practicalities of it right now is that we've got to put food on the table and pay the bills and pay for the house and pay for fuel for the car.
Yeah.
And God forbid we might want to take the kids on a holiday from time to time.
But you see, if we hadn't have been sabotaged and we'd be sitting here now with recoupments rolling in every day, then
Exactly.
we wouldn't need to look for new people just at the moment.
No,
But
no.
at the moment, we do, because without new donations being made, how on earth can we keep our organisation running? Now, let's just play it out, because I've done this before, but I'm going to do it again, right?
Yeah.
We'll do the Dickens. We'll do the Dickens, right? So
Yeah.
this is the Dickens example, right? So we have two pathways that we could travel down. One pathway is that we're going to take in donations from existing and new members so that we can finance all of our overhead costs and then deliver on all of our obligations and promises that we've made to our thousands of existing members. So that's one pathway, which is the pathway that we're on. The
Yeah.
other pathway is that we don't take in donations from existing and new members, and we aren't able to operate. And then we have to walk away from all of the work that we've put in over the years, and we have to walk away from all of the promises and obligations and go back to everybody who's expecting recoupments and say, sorry about that. We weren't able to deliver them to you because we ran out of funding.
Yeah.
And we decided that it was too much effort for us to carry on. So we just closed up.
Yeah.
That's
What would you
that's
do
the
then?
outcome. Yeah.
What would you do then? And this is to you members. What would you do then?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to do the recoupments yourself, but are very
No.
highly unlikely. Now, I'll go down a third pathway, shall I? Because I said this on my interview with Mel Clark. For all those people out there that are watching this who think that all I do every day is dream up new ways to defraud people, because there are still some people out there who believe that that's what I'm doing.
No.
Sadly, there's quite a few people out there who think that I wake up every morning thinking, how can I defraud some more people today?
Mm.
Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll do another webinar and see if I can sort of snare some other people into my trap and get them to pay some money directly to me so that I can carry on, with my lavish lifestyle over here in Cyprus.
Yeah.
There are sadly still some people who believe that that's what I'm doing.
I know.
I've been able to get away with it for years, and it's only because I'm a bit smart that I keep on getting away with it, right? A lot of people believe that, right? Sadly. Now, if that were true, right, if I only wanted to do this because I was trying to defraud everybody, given that I've got a track record of building trading systems that are beating the market, and I've got plenty of evidence that I can provide that I've built lots of trading systems, and I have a sports trading system right now that is constantly making a profit. So I have that, and I also have a $4.4 million wages and tax transcript that came in last year that was sabotaged by Amy Sanger.
Yeah.
Now, if I only wanted to make some money, given that I'm probably, arguably, the world's leading expert on the recoupment of abandoned credit, why wouldn't I just do it for myself?
Yeah.
Not bother with all of this other infrastructure that I've built. And why wouldn't I just trade the football markets, the sports betting markets in football markets, and make money on that? And why
Well, I
wouldn't I?
could go one
Yeah,
further than that, Ian, because at the beginning of our conversations, we spoke about the differential between how much credit people have put onto the Monopoly board. and that clearly through your financial services organizations, hundreds of millions of dollars, pounds, whatever you want to call it, has moved through and has been put onto that monopoly board. If you were going to recoup your abandoned credit back to the age of 18, you could quite easily come up with a pretty large number, I'm sure, that would set you up for life. Wouldn't need to do any of this.
Exactly. So, why did I start doing it? Because I wanted freedom and I wanted to build a freedom community. That's never changed. My intention has never changed. The way we set about doing it has changed and evolved, because that's what happens when you learn new things. You evolve, and that's what we've been doing. But now that we've got to a stage where I know exactly how we're doing it, because we've got to the point of knowing it works. That's the recruitment of abandoned credit. Everything we're doing, I know works. So we don't have to evolve it anymore.
No.
I'm desperate to get involved in the freedom plan. Desperate to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
To be quite frank, I want to stop talking about recoupment and why people haven't. I want to start talking about energy and health, and
farm to table food and all that good stuff.
That are far more interesting to me, because quite frankly, I've been doing commerce and playing on the monopoly board for 42 years.
Yeah.
I'm a bit bored of talking about people's money and their trusts and their wealth and their this, that, and the other, and their mortgages and their debts. I've been doing it all my working career.
Yeah. Yeah. Time to start doing something more meaningful. But I think people really don't understand this is just a vehicle. It's all it is. It's not the primary. It really isn't. So, moving on, the bigger picture. Some members question whether there are limits to how much can be recouped overall. Is this a finite system, or is it scalable long term? Again, we've kind of touched on this prior in terms of how much is being posted on the 945 every year, but just one last time.
Well, I'm glad this question's here, because this is so fundamental. You see, I've known for years and years, even though I didn't understand all of it years ago, and that learning has taken me a while, but I've always known, why on earth are there taxes? I said this many, many years ago, right? What is the purpose of taxes? And people say, Ian, come on, you should know that the taxes pay for the economy. They pay the government's expenses, yeah? And I used to say, how do you know that they do? Because it doesn't make any sense to me that world debt goes up and up and up and up and up and never comes down.
Yeah.
And yet the government keeps saying they need to raise taxes to pay for things.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me, right?
No.
It's like, I remember I went to Gambia many years ago, and there's kids there with one leg that had their legs blown off in various wars, literally. And they're living outside, and basically living in shacks.
Yeah.
Then I went and did a conference in Argentina, and I spoke at a conference, and you're driving from the airport in a taxi to the conference, and there's shanty towns.
Yeah.
And I play football in Brazil, and you're driving through shanty towns.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, hold on a minute, over here is a 5-star hotel, and right next to it is a shanty town of people living in tin
literally
structures.
abject poverty. Yeah.
Then you go to India and you recruit your IT team in India, and you've got the Hilton Hotel 5-star here, and then you've got people literally living on the street right next to it. Why is that? How is it that if the governments can print unlimited amounts of credit and currency to finance the pandemic and to finance anything they want to finance war, why is it that there's poverty? Why is it that they need to tax anything when they can? The central bank can buy a bond from the Treasury and print currency at infinitum.
Yeah,
which is what they're all doing all the time. So why is it that there are taxes? The only conclusion that you can come to is that it's a slavery model, because that is the truth of it.
Yeah.
It's a modern slavery model, and they've convinced everybody that we need to pay taxes because we've got to be good citizens, pay taxes. The government can then finance the roads and the schools and the hospitals and all the other things that we all need, and maybe put a bit in reserve for defense so that the Russians aren't going to come and kill us all.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what the story's been most of my life. Watch out for the Russians, they might invade us. Yeah. So, I've looked at that for years and thought none of that makes any sense to me. It all sounds like a ridiculous bullshit story to me. Now, the bigger picture is that there is an unlimited amount of energy that we can all transfer onto the monopoly board, right? It's pretty much unlimited.
Yeah.
Now, if you can recoup the taxes that the investment banks are paying for renting your energy, then the only constraint is how much can you recoup? How much tax can you recoup? But if you look at the last 3 years, it's about 80 billion a year in taxes that the investment banks are paying. So that is our constraint. Can we run a community on 80 billion a year? I think we can, can't we?
I think we absolutely can. Yeah.
So that is our constraint. That's the big picture, right?
Yeah.
I could do a whole webinar on it. I'd love to do it because I could break it down step by step by step. I mean, this whole nonsense that people have got in their head about how the government finances itself, it's total and utter nonsense.
Let's go on to final thoughts then, Ian, because we've been here for a good 2 hours, 20 minutes now. I think we've answered every single question there. I've been through every single question, so there are no more on the list. So what I would say is, hopefully from a listener's perspective, I hope that this has helped bring some clarity to the unanswered questions that you put through on the webinars. This is why we do these every week now, to make sure they do get answered and we don't miss any of them out. As always, if you've got questions relating to webinar content, fill in the question box when you register. When you register for the webinar, there is a specific box there where you can type your question in, and that will then come through to me. I will pick up on that and we'll cover those questions on these interviews that Ian and I do. So there's no stone left unturned. But before we kind of leave today, any final thoughts for the listeners and the watchers, Ian?
Well, my final thoughts, Andy, I've spent about 4 or 5 hours before we started this interview writing a paper of where my backstory is very, very similar. It's actually not my backstory. It's the backstory of the last 15, 20 years of the biggest cover-up in British history. And that is the cover-up of the 90 billion of bank fraud that I uncovered in 2008, 2009. And then my backstory of all the carnage that's happened since then, when I first blew the whistle. And I've written a paper, which I've just issued to Dan Needle, because he thinks that I'm a sovereign citizen, free man on the land. He still believes that even today, even after I've sent him all these papers through ecclesia law.
Yeah.
Now, we've all been given a journey on this in this realm. We've all got a part to play. There is a reason why I blew the whistle on the banks in 2008, 2009. I knew what I was doing. I didn't know the full extent of the consequences at the time, but I knew it was a very high risk thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, that decision I made then was a massive tipping point in my life. I can't explain how big that was to me, but I did it because I believe in integrity, honor, and the truth.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live in a world full of lies and deceptions. And I wasn't going to take part in lies and deceptions. So I blew the whistle, knowing that that might have a massive effect on me. And it did. And this is what most people out there have no concept of. They only look at me, what they see right now. but they don't see the decisions I've made over the last 15, 16, 18 years, right?
No.
So I'm going to leave you all with this thought. Ask yourself the question: would you do something because you know it's right that is going to ruin 16 to 18 years of your future and put you through hell and back? Would you do that for what you believe in? Would you do that because you can't tolerate the deception, the lies, the dystopia? Would you do that to look after yourself, or would you follow your destiny and do it knowing that there might be something bigger that you're actually following? I knew many, many years ago that I would do something that would be bigger than just having a career and having a nice big house and driving a nice car and having a family and going on holiday and all of these things that people aspire to, right? I knew many, many years ago that my journey on this monopoly board system in this realm was bigger than that, had more significance than that. I didn't know what it was, but I always knew it. And when I made that decision to blow the whistle, knowing that it was going to ruin my future for many, many years and put me through no end of stress, I knew there was a reason of doing it. That reason is what we're doing today. That reason is the freedom plan. But I had to, if you look at the movie, The Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne was jailed for something he didn't do.
Yeah.
Andy Dufresne spent years in jail trying to, he knew that he was going to break out and get free. Yeah. And what did he do? The actual prison itself and the warden was as rotten as you could ever get, right? No honor, no integrity, as dark as you like. And Andy Dufresne was the only one in that jail who probably was innocent. I've been in Shawshank jail for nearly 20 years. Same as Andy Dufresne was. And how did he break out? He had to crawl through a pipe full of shit.
Yep.
As I have done in the last 15, 16, 18 years. And I'm not joking when I say that. And I'm still having to walk through it now with all these people calling me a fraudster.
Yeah.
And the only reason I've managed to get through it, all of it, is because I know there's something bigger at the end of that tunnel. Just like Andy Dufresne, when he broke out of the tunnel, he put his arms in the air and he was free. That's the freedom plan.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand what I've just said, then I don't even know why you're watching this video.
No, me neither. Maybe they need to go and watch Shawshank Redemption first. That might help. Give them a frame of reference. Yeah. Well, listen, Ian, it's been a pleasure as always. I know this has just been a Q&A, but I feel it's been much more than a Q&A. And I hope you guys have felt that too, that we only have one goal here, which is the freedom plan. It's not about recoupment. It's not about mortgage securities. It's not about asset fortress trusts. These are just vehicles and constructs that we're using for the freedom plan. Clean water, abundant energy, good, wholesome farm to table food without all of the GM modified shit and all of the sprays and chemicals and pesticides that mess around with your internal systems. Good health care, not medication. These are the things that we want to pursue. And the only way that we can pursue them is by funding it from recoupment. So while recoupment is on everybody's minds, and I get that, everybody, when's my recoupment coming? When's my recoupment coming? Do you not think we're asking the same question? We cannot wait for that recoupment to come through, because as soon as it does, we can start working on what's really important, which is the freedom plan. So thank you for watching. We will be doing these every week. So we've got another webinar coming up on Saturday of this week, and we'll be doing a Q&A early part of next week. So if you have got questions, like I said, please put them in the registration box when you register for the webinar. I will pick that up. I'll make a big long list of questions, and Ian and I will be back here again, same time, same place next week to answer them all for you. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.
Yeah.